She went into the side of Mount Susitna on September 12, 2001, 347 nautical miles northwest of Anchorage, doing about 90 knots in a 1956 Super Cub with tundra tires and a heart that finally said enough. I know the exact date because it was 3 days after my 9th birthday and 1 day after the towers fell and the whole world was too busy looking south to notice a woman disappearing into an Alaskan mountain. They never found the plane. They looked for 11 days, then the weather closed in and the money ran out and people had bigger ghosts to chase. I stood on the gravel strip outside Talkeetna every afternoon for a year, waiting for the sound of her prop, certain that if LL just stayed long enough, she'd come droning over the trees with that crooked grin and say, "Hop in, kiddo, let's go find some caribou." She never did, so I grew up believing she killed herself and took the easy way out. That she loved the sky more than she loved me. That's what people said when they thought I couldn't hear them. That's what my father said when he was drunk, which was most of the time after. That's what I told myself every night when the dark got too loud. I was wrong about all of it. I'm 32 now, and I fly the same routes she did. I haul hunters who want to kill things they can't eat, fishermen who want salmon bigger than their dicks, and bodies in plywood boxes when the villages run out of room in the permafrost. I'm good at it, better than good. I can land on a strip the length of a football field with 50 feet of visibility and a 40-knot crosswind, and I still check the ridgeline for her yellow cub every single time I flare. Last week, the mountain gave her back. Climate change, they call it. The glacier that swallowed her plane is retreating faster than anyone predicted. And one morning in August, a climbing party on Susitna found fabric the color of buttercream flapping in the wind like a surrender flag. Then they found the rest. The fuselage folded like a crushed beer can, the prop bent into a question mark, and my mother still strapped in the front seat, perfectly frozen, wearing the same Carhartt overalls she had on the day she left. The troopers called me because I'm listed as next of kin on a report older than most of the pilots I fly with. They asked if I wanted to identify the body. I laughed so hard I threw up in the FBO bathroom. Of course I wanted to see her. I'd been waiting 23 years for one more minute. They flew her out in a helicopter sling load wrapped in blue tarps like illegal ivory. I met the bird at Merrill Field and watched them unload her the way I've watched them unload moose carcasses 100 times. Same sling, same smell of avgas and death. Only this time the cargo had my eyes. Inside the tarp, she looked exactly the same. 38 years old forever. Her hair was still in the braid Elle used to hide behind when I was little. Her hands were still curled around the yoke, like she was pulling out of the dive at the very last second. There was a smile on her face, small and private, like she'd just spotted something beautiful on the horizon. They found the cockpit voice recorder too, one of those old Fairchild units the size of a lunchbox. The NTSB guys said it was a miracle it survived. They cleaned it up, digitized it, and handed me a thumb drive with a warning. "It's rough audio, ma'am. You sure you want to hear this alone?" I wasn't sure of anything anymore. I waited until Elle was home, my cabin on Christensen Lake, the one she helped me build the summer I was 15, before I plugged it in. The recording is 8 minutes and 41 seconds long. The first 6 minutes are routine, radio calls, engine noise, her humming an old Lucinda Williams song under her breath. Then the engine coughs. Once. Twice? She swears softly. Come on, baby, don't do this to me. The RPMs drop. She tries to restart. Nothing. She's over the Susitna Valley, no place to land except trees and rocks and goodbye. That's when she says my name. Juno, honey, if you're hearing this, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry I was late. Her voice cracks on the word late like it's the worst thing she's ever done. I was coming home. I swear to God, I was coming home. The weather report was wrong. I thought I could make it before the front hit. I was bringing you that stupid stuffed moose from Fairbanks, the one with the pink bow you wanted. I was a sob, then steel. I love you bigger than mountains. Kiddo, tell your dad. Tell him I tried. The last 30 seconds are wind and silence and the sound of her breathing fast, like she's running towards something instead of away. Then impact. Elle listened to it 47 times that first night. I fell asleep with the headphones on and woke up with her voice still in my ears. There was something else in the wreckage, too. A manila envelope sealed with duct tape, tucked inside her flight bag. My name written on the front in her handwriting. Inside were 3 things. 1. A letter addressed to someone named Evelyn Harper in Missoula, Montana. 2. A photograph of my mother holding a newborn, me, and a woman I've never seen before, both of them crying and laughing at the same time. 3. A birth certificate. My birth certificate. Except the mother listed isn't Clara Calick. It's Evelyn Harper. And the father line is blank. I sat on my cabin floor and stared at those pieces of paper until the sun came up and the lake turned the color of blood. My mother didn't kill herself. She was flying home to tell me the truth, and the mountain took it from both of us. I called the only person who might know what the hell was going on. My grandmother, Evelyn, who Elle have never met, who my father told me, died before I was born. She answered on the second ring. Juno? She said, like she'd been waiting 32 years for the phone to ring. I couldn't speak. I knew this day would come, she whispered. Clara made me promise I'd wait until you were ready. Are you ready, baby? Elle looked out the window at the float plane tied to my dock, at the mountains that have kept every secret Elle ever had. No, I said, but I'm comin' anyway. 3 days later, I loaded my mother's body into the back of my 1972 de Havilland Beaver, buckled her into the co-pilot seat the way she used to buckle me when I was small, and filed a flight plan south, 4,000 miles, Alaska to Montana, over glaciers that are dying, forests on fire, cities I've never seen. I'm bringing her home to a woman who gave me away and a truth I'm not sure I want. Every leg of the trip, Elle played the CVR on loop. Every time I hear her say, I was coming home, I cry a little less and get a little angrier. Somewhere over the Yukon, I start talking back to her. You were late, Mom, 23 years late. Over northern British Columbia, Elle, forgive her for the weather. Over the Dakotas, I forgive her for the lie. When Elle land in Missoula, the mountains are smaller than I expected. The sky feels lower, like it's waiting to catch me if Elle fall. Evelyn is standing on the ramp in a denim jacket and cowboy boots, gray hair to her waist, holding a stuffed moose with a faded pink bow. She looks exactly like my mother would have if she'd lived long enough to get old. I shut down the engines and sit there for a long time, hands on the yoke the way Mom's were when she died. Evelyn opens the door and climbs in without asking. She doesn't say anything at first. She just reaches over and touches my mother's frozen cheek, like she's checking if she's real. Then she looks at me and starts to cry the way people cry when they've been holding it in for decades. I'm sorry, she says. I was 20 years old and terrified, and I thought I was doing the right thing. Clara promised she'd bring you back when you were older. She was supposed to have time. I nod because I can't speak. Evelyn unbuckles Clara's seatbelt gently, like she's waking her from a nap. "Come on, darling," she says to both of us. "Let's go home." We carry my mother out together, one under each arm, like she weighs nothing at all. The Montana sun is warm on our backs, and for the first time in my life, the sky doesn't feel like a graveyard. It feels like a doorway. I still don't know what happens next. I don't know if I can forgive entirely, or if forgiveness is even the point. I don't know if I'll stay in Missoula or fly north again tomorrow. But I know this: my mother didn't leave me. She was trying to come home, and the mountain kept her until Elle was strong enough to carry her the rest of the way. And now that I have, I think I might finally learn how to land. I didn't plan to bring her all the way south in one go. 4,000 miles is a lot of sky to carry a dead woman through, and I'm not that good a pilot. Nobody is, but the moment I shut the Beaver's door with Mom buckled in beside me, something locked inside my chest and refused to let me stop for more than fuel and coffee, and the kind of crying that leaves you dehydrated and shaking. So Elle flew. Li flew like the mountain might change its mind and take her back. Day 1, Talkeetna to Whitehorse, Yukon, 720 nautical miles. Elle took off at dawn with the lake still smoking from the night's cold. The Beaver was heavy. Mom in the right seat, her frozen body wrapped in moving blankets and bungee corded so she wouldn't shift in turbulence, the manila envelope with my real birth certificate taped to the glare shield where I could see it every time Elle looked up. The CVR played on a loop through the headset. 8 minutes and 41 seconds over and over until her last words were carved into the lining of my skull. "I was coming home, Juno. I'm sorry I was late." I cried so hard climbing through 8,000 feet that I had to pull oxygen just to stay conscious. Somewhere over the Alaska range, I started talking back to her. "You were always late, Mom, every damn time. Remember when you promised to be at my first solo and showed up 3 hours after Elle landed, smelling like fish slime and apologies? Or waited on that strip until the mosquitoes tried to carry me off?" Elle laughed. It sounded insane in the empty cockpit. "I hated you for that. I hated you for a lot of things." The mountains didn't answer. They just slid underneath, white and indifferent. Elle landed in Whitehorse with the prop ticking itself cool and a Yukon sunset bleeding across the windshield. I sat on the ramp until long after dark, afraid to open the door because opening the door meant she was still dead and I was still the daughter who never got picked up from school on time. Eventually, a lineman knocked on the window. "You okay in there, ma'am?" Wiped my face. Define okay. He saw the shape under the blankets and went very quiet. Then he handed me a thermos of coffee without being asked. I drank it black and scalding while the northern lights flickered green overhead, like they were trying to spell something I wasn't ready to read. Day 2? Whitehorse to Prince George, BC, 610 nautical miles, dreamed of her all night. Not the frozen version beside me, the living one. She was standing on a gravel bar, hip deep in the Talkeetna River, teaching me how to cast a fly rod when I was 7. She kept saying, "Loose wrist Juno. Let the river do the work." Then the river turned into sky, and she was falling upward, and I couldn't catch her. I woke up screaming and punched the yoke so hard I bruised my knuckles. The leg south took me over country on fire. Whole drainage is burning, smoke towers punching 30,000 feet. I had to deviate 200 miles around a TFR and still flew through enough ash to paint the leading edges gray. Every time the engine coughed, Elle panicked, certain the mountain had sent its curse after us. At one point, the turbulence got so bad. Mom's body shifted and her head lolled against my shoulder. Her skin was colder than the air outside at altitude. I could feel the ice of her through 3 layers of Carhartt and Gore-Tex. I started shaking and couldn't stop. That was when I realized I wasn't just bringing her body south. I was bringing every unsaid thing between us, every birthday she missed, every night I fell asleep, waiting for headlights that never came. Every time I told people, my mom's a pilot, like that explained why I grew up half wild. I spoke into the headset like she could hear me. You want to know the worst part? I became you anyway. I fly the same shitty routes, take the same stupid risks, chase the same horizons. I spent 23 years trying not to be you and ended up your goddamn mirror. I cried until my throat tasted like pennies. Day 3, Prince George to Missoula, Montana, 680 nautical miles. I crossed the border at Coutts, Alberta, and the American controller greeted me with, "Welcome home, November 7-4, whiskey." Home. The word hit harder than any gust I'd flown through. Montana looked smaller than I remembered from the charts. The mountains were gentler, the valleys wider. It felt like someone had turned the volume down on the world. Elle landed at Missoula with exactly 23 gallons remaining. Enough to make it, not enough to turn back. I shut down on the ramp and sat there a long time, listening to the engine tick and the blood in my ears. Evelyn Harper was already waiting. She looked like Mom would have looked at 60, same cheekbones, same stubborn tilt to the chin, same eyes the color of glacier runoff. She was holding the stuffed moose with the pink bow, and the sight of it, faded, one eye missing, ear chewed by a dog 25 years ago, cracked something open in me I didn't know was still whole. Elle opened the door and the Montana heat rolled in, thick with pine and cut grass. Evelyn didn't speak at first. She just climbed the wing strut like she'd done it 1,000 times, maybe she had once, and looked at her daughter strapped into the co-pilot seat. Then she made this sound, half sob, half prayer. She reached out and touched Mom's cheek with fingers that trembled like aspen leaves. "Clara," she whispered. "Oh, baby girl." Elle couldn't move. I was crying so hard my vision tunneled. Evelyn turned to me and opened her arms. I fell into them like I was 9 years old again, and someone had finally come to pick me up. She smelled like wood smoke and lilacs and every apology I never got. We stood there on the wing of that tired old beaver until the lineman pretended not to watch and the sun burned the tears off our faces. Later, after the coroner, after the paperwork, after the quietest funeral Montana has ever seen, we drove out to the ranch Evelyn bought the year I was born. 30 acres outside Lolo Cottonwoods along the Bitterroot River, a barn that used to be red and now leans silver in the wind. She gave me Mom's room. The bed is still made up with the same quilt. There's a photograph on the dresser. Mom at 19, belly round with me, standing next to Evelyn in front of this very house. They're both laughing so hard they're crying. On the back, in Mom's handwriting, "We did it, Mama. She's perfect. I slept there that first night with the window open and the river talking outside. I dreamed Mom came in and sat on the edge of the bed like she used to when I had nightmares. She brushed the hair off my forehead and said, 'I wasn't late on purpose, Juno Bug. The weather lied. I fought it the whole way. I need you to know that.' In the dream, I asked the question I'd carried since I was 9. Why didn't you tell me Evelyn was my real mom?" She smiled the way she did when Elle asked hard things as a kid. Because Elle was selfish. I wanted you to be mine alone for a little while. I thought there'd be time to share later. I woke up gasping, but for once it wasn't from grief. It was from something softer. The next morning, Evelyn made coffee strong enough to wake the dead, and we sat on the porch and started talking. Really talking. She told me how she was 20 unmarried in 1989 Montana, where girls like her disappeared into shame or worse. How Mom, 19 wild, already flying for a living, showed up one day and said, "Give me the baby, I can give her the sky." How they made a plan: Mom would raise me in Alaska, Evelyn would send money and letters and wait until Elle was old enough to understand. How Mom was supposed to bring me for my 10th birthday and never made it. How Evelyn aged out of hope years before the mountain gave her daughter back. Elle listened until the coffee went cold and the sun climbed high enough to burn the mist off the river. Then Elle asked the only question that still mattered. "Do you want me to stay?" Evelyn looked at me for a long time. Her eyes were wet but steady. "I want you to choose," she said. "For the first time in your life, Juno, nobody's late, nobody's leaving. You get to decide where home is." Elle looked out at the Bitterroot Mountains, smaller than the Alaska Range, gentler but still mountains, and felt something settle in my chest, like a plane finally trimmed for level flight. That night, I walked down to the river with the stuffed moose and the manila envelope. I built a small fire out of driftwood and the lies I'd been telling myself for 23 years. Elle played the CVR one last time. When it got to the part where Mom says, "Tell Juno I'm sorry I was late," I finally answered her out loud. "You weren't late, Mom. You were exactly on time. I just had to fly south to meet you." Then I turned the recorder off and dropped it into the flames. The river kept talking. The mountains listened, and for the first time since I was 9 years old, the sky didn't feel like a grave. It felt like a promise kept. I still fly. I split seasons now, summers in Talkeetna, winters out of Missoula. I teach Evelyn to pull the beaver into the air, and she laughs like a girl when we clear the cottonwoods. Some nights we sit on her porch and watch the stars come out over the Bitterroot, and I tell her stories about the mom she never got to finish raising. And every August I fly north alone, land on the gravel strip outside Talkeetna, where I waited for headlights that never came, and Elle leave a single pink ribbon tied to the windsock, just in case someone's still trying to find their way home. The mountain kept her for 23 years. Elle only needed 4,000 miles to bring her the rest of the way. And I have the rest of my life to make sure she's never late again. If you liked my story, you can support me by making a donation so I can write more stories. Thank you in advance. And you, what would you do in this person's place? I would love to hear your opinion, so please share it with me in the comments. I'm always curious about what you all think, and also write me where you heard this story. For more life stories like this, like the video and subscribe to my channel. There are many other stories waiting for you. With heartfelt greetings, Elizabeth Queen.